Have you ever wondered how climate change could force you to abandon your home? This chilling question brings us face to face with the stark reality of climate migration. It's an emerging trend where people are compelled to leave their homes, not by choice, but by the harsh realities of our changing climate. Climate migration is a multifaceted issue, driven by a multitude of factors. One of the key catalysts is the rise in sea levels. Imagine living on an island or coastal area where every year, the water inches closer to your doorstep. Over time, your home, your community, your way of life all get swallowed up by the encroaching sea. It's not a scene from a dystopian novel, but a reality for millions of people worldwide. Just as daunting are the extreme weather events. Hurricanes, floods, droughts, and wildfires are becoming more frequent and more severe. These calamities wreak havoc on communities, destroying homes and livelihoods, forcing people to move in search of safety and stability. Now let's talk about changing agricultural conditions. With global warming, traditional farming practices are becoming unsustainable. Unpredictable weather patterns, prolonged droughts, and shifting seasons are making it harder for farmers to grow crops. In many parts of the world, farming communities are on the brink, forced to abandon their ancestral lands in search of more hospitable conditions. It's important to remember that climate migration isn't a new phenomenon. For centuries, humans have moved in response to environmental changes. What is new, however, is the scale and speed of this migration. As global temperatures rise, more people are being forced to leave their homes. So climate migration is not a future possibility, it's a current reality. It's happening now, and if we don't act, it's only going to escalate. In the following scenes, we'll delve deeper into the history of climate migration, its future implications, and finally, how we can address this growing crisis. Stay tuned as we navigate this complex and critical issue together. Climate migration is not a new concept. It's been happening for centuries. As far back as the 30s, we can see clear instances of climate migration. The Dust Bowl era in the United States is an exemplary case. This ecological disaster, caused by severe drought and poor farming practices, led to a mass exodus from the Great Plains. Thousands of families, unable to sustain their livelihoods, packed up their lives and headed west in search of better opportunities. This event stands as a stark example of how environmental changes can drive human migration. Fast forward to the late 20th century, we find another instance of climate migration in Bangladesh. After the Bola cyclone in 1970, one of the deadliest on record, hundreds of thousands of people were displaced. This event, coupled with political tensions, eventually led to the Bangladesh Liberation War. It's a poignant reminder of how environmental pressures can exacerbate political conflict and force people to leave their homes. In more recent history, we turn our attention to the Syrian refugee crisis. While it's primarily seen as a consequence of political unrest, environmental factors played a significant role too. A devastating drought in the region, worsened by climate change, led to widespread crop failure and livestock mortality. This resulted in a severe food shortage, economic hardship, and mass internal displacement, eventually contributing to the outbreak of the Syrian civil war. These historical examples paint a vivid picture of how environmental changes influence human migration patterns. From the Dust Bowl era to the Syrian crisis, we see how shifts in climate can push people from their homes, seeking refuge and survival elsewhere. It's a narrative that has played out time and again throughout history. And yet, it's not just about looking back. These patterns provide us with valuable insights into what lies ahead. With the ongoing climate change, we can expect these migration trends to continue, if not intensify. As we can see, climate migration has been a part of our history, and it's bound to be a part of our future. The future of climate migration will be determined by how we respond to climate change today. Imagine this: by mid-century, climate change has the potential to displace hundreds of millions of people. Yes, you heard it right, hundreds of millions. This isn't a scene from a dystopian novel. It's a very plausible reality if we don't take decisive action now. The World Bank estimates that, without intervention, climate change could force more than 140 million people to leave their homes by 2050. Now, where are these potential hotspots for climate migration? The Global Report on Internal Displacement highlights 3 regions: Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and Latin America. These areas could see tens of millions of climate migrants by mid-century due to factors like water scarcity, declining crop productivity, and sea level rise. But it's not just about numbers, it's about lives uprooted and disrupted. Climate migration is not a choice, but a necessity for survival. For many, it's about leaving a place they've called home for generations, severing ties to their culture, their community, their land. The future of climate migration is in our hands. The actions we take now can either mitigate these effects or exacerbate them. If we continue on our current path, disregarding the urgency of climate change, we risk fueling the largest mass movement of people in history. But if we act now, we can shape a different future. By investing in sustainable development, promoting climate-smart agriculture, and enforcing strict emission standards, we can slow the rate of global warming and lessen the impact of climate migration. It's not just about reducing greenhouse gas emissions, though. We need comprehensive policies that protect the rights of climate migrants, that provide them with the resources and support they need to rebuild their lives. This includes everything from legal recognition to job training and access to healthcare. The stakes are high and the clock is ticking. The future of climate migration is a reflection of our commitment to combat climate change. Our actions today will determine whether we can prevent mass displacement or if we're going to witness the largest migration in human history. Addressing climate migration is not just an environmental issue, but also a political and social one. As we delve deeper into the heart of this matter, it's essential to understand that climate migration brings along a complex web of political and social implications. When people are forced to leave their homes due to environmental changes, they often find themselves in a legal limbo. Despite their circumstances being driven by forces beyond their control, climate migrants don't fit neatly into the legal definition of a refugee. This means they often lack the protections and rights typically afforded to refugees under international law. Recognizing climate migrants and providing them with legal protections is a crucial step, but it's also a politically charged one. Nations around the world must come together, acknowledging the reality of climate migration, and work towards creating comprehensive policies that provide legal status and protection for these individuals. But addressing climate migration isn't simply about creating legal frameworks. It's about tackling the root causes of the issue, climate change itself. This means taking serious measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, the primary driver of global warming and subsequent environmental changes. Investing in sustainable development is another essential piece of the puzzle. By fostering economic growth that respects and works with nature, rather than against it, we can help create resilient communities that can withstand the impacts of climate change. This not only reduces the need for migration, but also ensures a healthier planet for future generations. Creating migration policies that take climate change into account is also crucial. These policies should facilitate safe, orderly, and regular migration, helping people move away from areas severely affected by climate change to places where they can build a new life. Addressing climate migration is a multifaceted challenge, one that requires us to rethink how we interact with our environment, how we develop our economies, and how we treat those forced to move due to circumstances beyond their control. Climate migration is a global challenge that requires a global solution. It's about time we face this issue head-on, with compassion, foresight, and collective action. Climate migration is a complex issue, but it's one that we can't ignore. As we journey through the winding pathways of history, we see that climate migration is not a new phenomenon. It has been a part of human existence, a testament to our resilience and adaptability in the face of environmental changes. But today, the stakes are higher, the scale is larger, and the urgency is greater. We've looked into the past, exploring the historical patterns of climate migration. We've seen how environmental changes have shaped civilizations, prompting people to leave their homes in search of safer, more hospitable lands. We've seen the profound impacts of these movements, not just on the migrants themselves, but also on the communities they join and the ones they leave behind. We've peered into the future, contemplating the potential implications of climate migration in the coming years. As the planet continues to warm, we're likely to see more people displaced, more communities disrupted, and more tensions arising from the pressures of relocation. The future of climate migration is uncertain, but one thing is clear: we can't afford to sit back and let it unfold unchecked. We've examined the ways in which we can address climate migration, from personal actions to policy changes. We can reduce our carbon footprints, advocate for renewable energy, support sustainable agriculture, and push for policies that protect climate migrants. Each of us has a role to play in mitigating the impacts of climate migration, and every action counts. But let's not forget, climate migration is not just about numbers or trends or policies. It's about people. It's about families torn apart, communities uprooted, cultures at risk of being lost. It's about our collective responsibility to ensure that everyone, regardless of where they come from or why they had to leave, has a safe and sustainable place to call home. As we wrap up, let's remember this. Climate migration is not just about the environment, it's about people. And it's up to us to ensure that everyone has a safe and sustainable place to call home.